What I want to go into now is I want to show you a close-up of the caliber conversion kit, and I'm going to go through each die, tell you some reasons why I picked the Dillons, and explain a little bit what they do for beginners. Caliber conversion kit for the Dillon 550B is right here, what you see in front of you. Each caliber has a specific powder measure die and expander. This expander expands your brass, and a shell plate. So if I want to change from 40 Smith & Wesson to 9mm, I have a different one of these for that caliber. So real quick, that was the caliber conversion kit. What this die does, it goes into, it's your expander and powder measure through die, basically. The powder measure sits on here. When I pull the ram, it dispenses the powder through this die because this die is hollow. And this also expands the casing. So when I pull the ram, this goes up and it actually goes inside and expands or bells this part, the top of the casing. Belling is just a fancy word for expanding. Now this is over exaggerated. I wanted just to so you could see it on camera. But the reason you do that is so you can set your bullet in there, and when you go to seat your bullet, the casing and the bullet will match. If you don't put a bell on it, what will happen is it'll be too tight and you'll start shaving lead or part of the bullet off. So you want to just do a very light belling, something along that lines where you can fit the bullet into. So now I want to go into the dies themselves. The first one here, this is a full-length sizer die. And the reason I went with a full-length sizer die with the Dillon is because, especially for 40 Smith & Wesson, it's notorious for bulging the cases. And I'll do another video on bulging cases and things like that. But this is a full-length sizer die. So it'll take the belling that occurs on the bottom of the casing. It'll take all that out. The other reason I like this die is because the decapper, this little pin right here, which pushes the primers out, is actually spring-loaded. And they have a thing called primer drawback, and what happens is the primer actually gets stuck on there, and it pulls the old primer back up into the case and gets stuck and wedged. So this really helps against that. This one is the seating die, and it does exactly what it says. It seats the bullet into the casing. Basically, you set this die at a certain depth, and that's what gives you the overall length of the bullet. And the last step in the process is your crimp die. Most pistols or semi-automatic handguns use taper crimp. Basically starts out big at the bottom, and as this die goes up, it shrinks in size. Most revolvers, like 38s and things like that, they use what's called a roll crimp. That's a different die set up inside. You basically, what you want to do with this die is you're just wanting to take that belling off that you put into the casing earlier. You want to take that away. What it does is it holds the casing to the bullet. But if you don't, and you leave that little lip, sometimes that can get caught up and it'll go failure to go into battery and other things like that. So you put a basic crimp on there just to hold the bullet strong enough just to hold it. A good way to tell if you're not using enough crimp, check when you're shooting. If you're shooting in a semi-automatic, shoot a couple rounds, take the magazine out, clear the gun, and take a couple rounds out of the magazine. Sometimes the recoil from shooting will actually pull these bullets out a little bit. So when you're first testing up a load, I would advise you to bring a set of calipers there and take your overall length before you shoot it, and then after you take some out, and then after you shoot them, if it's a different length, you know you don't have enough crimp on there.